Fingerprints are our true identity. So palmistry, astrology, fortune telling or bhavishyavani or future telling is all about the predictive science. So fingerprint evaluation is not related to any of the predictive sciences. So when we do the evaluation, that person automatically gets connected to what the purpose is ultimately. The research shows that people with this type of fingerprint are prone to certain things.
Very few people, would come and say, okay, make my personality better. I don't think too many people would be interested in finding that out. Sure, the questions are typically about career and so on.
Absolutely. Corporate working individuals undergoing midlife crisis, they also come to me. The fingerprint never changes. So if you get your evaluation done now or after 2 years, the result will remain the same. You only need to know yourself because rest everything can be Googled.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another podcast in my series, Business Networking with Vipul Bondal. So I have a very interesting guest today. I say that about all my guests, but this guy is particularly interesting. He is in a very unique sort of a business and a very unique specialty, which very few of us would have actually heard. And to be honest, I heard of it for the first time only when I met him. So my guest today is Venkataraman Balakrishnan, who is a fingerprint specialist. And please allow me to tell you a little bit more about Venkat before I welcome him uh, once more to the podcast. So Venkat has 24 years of corporate experience in positions in finance, supply chain, and commercial. And after having worked with pioneering brands like Titan, Tata Sky, Sharp, Agility Logistics, and Schoolwear, he began his own venture called Scripting Success, which he says is to contribute to society through a lesser known but absolutely fascinating science of fingerprint evaluation. So what he does with this, he says, is with the aid of this scientific skill, we evaluate and map the human brain to help you identify your strengths and limitations, thereby giving remedies for areas of improvement. Amazingly, this is performed, hold your breath, without asking a single question. A firm believer in this science, he affirms that fingerprints say everything about a person in terms of what the core potential strengths and areas of improvements are. In addition, he can provide accurate information on health symptoms which a person is highly prone to. He is in this profession for the last 9.5 years and has touched upon more than 3,200 plus individuals, which includes kids, students, and young adults. He says this evaluation can be done for children, housewives, working professionals, corporate professionals, and couples. It is always better to know yourself to be the best, is what he says. In addition to all this, Venkat is also a marathoner. He has done what about 20 odd or more than 20 odd marathons, I think, and he's a regular at the Tata Marathon in Mumbai. So it gives me great pleasure to invite my very good friend Venkataraman Balakrishnan. Welcome, Venkat.
Thank you so much, Vipul, for a warm welcome, and it was really a nice introduction, and that too after a very long time. So it's my pleasure to be on this platform, and I'm sure I'll be more than happy to educate what I am into.
Sure. So let's begin with very often what people understand about fingerprint is more in the forensics area. Typically to solve crimes and other such things. What people and most people, including me, for until I met you, Venkat, was that we are not very familiar with fingerprint evaluation the way you do it. Most of us are quite familiar with palmistry, you know. So can you tell us what fingerprint evaluation is? ये चीज क्या है भाई? Can you throw some light?
That's a wonderful question to begin with. In fact, that's actually the stage when you set the ball rolling. So as you rightly mentioned, we all are aware about the fingerprints associated with the forensic to solve crime and such things.
That's right.
So fingerprint analysis, what I'm going to share, is no way related to any of this forensics. So this analysis is all about knowing yourself.
Okay.
Fingerprints are our true identity. Like you would have heard the tagline of Aadhaar card, Meri
Correct.
Aadhaar, Meri Pehchan. Fingerprints is your true identity and it reveals your identity. So it talks about what a person is born with. When I say what a person is born with, you understand what his or her uniqueness is. Because we all are aware that every person is unique and every person is born with certain strengths and limitations.
Right.
So the fingerprint tells you about your strengths and limitations.
Okay.
Every person is born unique and God has gifted intelligence to every individual. So for that matter, even the person who sweeps the road or the guy who delivers milk in the morning to your place is equally intelligent. So
Right.
now the question arises is how do you identify the intelligence or the potential strengths or the limitations or your uniqueness?
Right.
So the first answer is by doing a lot of trial and error basis based on your experience. The second and the most scientific way to understand your uniqueness is by your fingerprint. Even the fingerprints of the identical twins can not be the same. We all have skill sets, right? So the 10 fingerprints indicates 10 skill sets which every human being is gifted with. So the type of fingerprints will help us to nurture the skill sets. So the combination of your strong skill sets, it becomes very easy to navigate your life both in personal and professional.
Perfect. So, that's a good, explanation of what fingerprint evaluation is. We'll get into the details a little bit later. But before that, I wanted to say because, typically palmistry or astrology or there are many of these kinds of evaluation which are done, which we call predictive sciences. Many of these predictive sciences, kind of say more or less the same thing, say that we try and understand you better so that you can make more informed choices about career, about your partner, and so on. I mean, and I'm not going to, sit on judgment on any of them. So how does fingerprint analysis or evaluation stack up against, the other predictive sciences?
So palmistry, astrology, fortune telling or bhavishyavani or future telling is all about the predictive science. So fingerprint evaluation is not related to any of the predictive sciences. This is the first thing what I clear the myth of when I meet people. Again, I say it's all about to know about a person, what is he born with. Here we are talking about innates. Innates means the quality with which a person is born with. You can relate it to skill sets or the intelligence. So palmistry and astrology can tell you about your past and can predict your future. But fingerprint evaluation doesn't talk about your past and doesn't talk about your future.
Okay.
It talks what are you born with and where you need to work upon to be happy with whatever you're doing. So this is the crux. So for example, palmistry or astrology can say आप engineering कर सकते हो. But I can go to the extent of saying what kind of engineering one can do, provided the strong skill sets matches the requirement of that engineering. Because every profession is a combination of skill sets, right? So we have the total skill sets with us. So based on the combination of the stronger skill sets, we identify and we can map. So what we do over here is we identify the talent first and map your career, education, your stream, your profession, your business to what your talent is. So it becomes a easy exercise rather than doing an experiment like 10th के बाद हमने चलो marks के basis में we took science, graduation कर लिया. After that you do post graduation and just start your journey without knowing where you are heading towards. As far as what I understand, my experience is hardly 2 to 5% of the people are very clear about what they want to do. The rest, everyone is not clear about what they want to do. It's just based on their experiential learning, the environment, what they get, the guidance, what they get.
Right.
But yes, that in the true sense, once you identify your talent, it becomes very easy to map it. And once you follow your strengths, it is as good as you are following your nature.
I mean, 21 years of 24 years of corporate experience. How did you, land here? I mean, to say, and how did you? Uh, what was that encounter or encounters that led you to becoming a fingerprint evaluating expert?
So this is a very nostalgic question. You have made me go
Sure.
back to nostalgia. So of course I would love to go back to it. I don't get an option to talk about this many a times, but since you have triggered this question, so
Right.
this happens mostly with many of us. Okay, so when I was nearing my 40s and I was in the midst of my corporate life, okay, all settled, middle management, higher position mein hai, and that's when you started to see yourself, kuch to gadbad ho raha hai, what is happening, what's going to happen after 5 years, where are you after 5 years? All these questions comes into mind. But
Right.
for me, being a typical Tam Bram,
Ah,
I'm from a Tam Bram Iyer family.
right.
95% or more of the people from this segment are all salaried and service class people.
Correct.
So they all believe in that monthly cycle basis.
Right.
No any history of business background, or any kind
Correct.
of inherited stuff which
Sure.
you can play around with. That's the time when I was looking at things. So it so accidentally happened. So to be very clear, 10 and a half, 11 years ago, we got this evaluation done for our son at that time. So this was very accidental. One of my friends said, "Hey Venkat, I know your kid. He's quite young, but I could gauge a lot of things from what he speaks to me and how I speak to him. So I would suggest meet this so and so person and get this evaluation done." I said, "What is it all about?" He said, "No, nothing doing. You just go and meet." दोस्त ने बोल दिया, and I had full faith कि कुछ बोला है तो अच्छा ही बोला रहेगा. And when somebody talks for your kid, you always feel
Correct.
happy.
You always want to. Yeah.
So that's how I went and met this person, and that person started taking the fingerprints through biometric. So I said, "ये क्या है?" बोला, "No, this is a type of evaluation which helps you to understand yourself. More in detail, we will talk when we meet for the consultation." Okay, so now the consultation happened. When the consultation happened, like parents, my wife had taken a long list, laundry list, ki ye hai, wo hai. That time my kid was in the junior KG, yeah, believe me. So at that point of time, like all the parents who does the same thing more or less, we had put our kid in abacus, we had put our kid in skating, we had put our kid in drawing, and every afternoon during lunchtime, me and my wife used to call up each other and ask कि आज किसकी बारी है to drop a kid. Abacus because many of his friends had done, were part of it. Skating because my elder sister-in-law's son used to be a national skater and an international skater.
Right.
बोला चलो उससे कुछ सीखने मिल जाएगा, चलो डाल दिया. And drawing because there was that day had to be filled, करके drawing में भी डाल दिया. So this is the case with almost all the parents, all the aspiring and ambitious parents, without knowing कि बच्चा करे क्या कि नहीं, we just put into it. But when the consultation got over, believe me, most of the points what my wife had jotted down had got ticked. And what we realized was the person told us कि ये जो तीन activity में डाले हो ना, your kid is not meant for that. And what reasons the person gave us, we were able to correlate. Well, ये सब
Right.
चीज you can on a hobby basis, but not on a competitive basis,
Right.
which we could realize. Skating, he had been doing for 3 years, but he had never won a medal. He was always first or second from the back. Though we had been taking him all around, training, winning, support. We realized that this guy is meant for thinking. He is completely a thought driven person. So
Right.
anything where mental calculation or mental things can be done is what he will be good at. So chess, mental maths was what one thing was suggested. And we realized that okay, बाकी सब पॉइंट सही है तो ये भी पॉइंट सही रहेगा. Plus we could understand how to communicate with our kid. अभी बोलने के लिए he was our kid, but that person knew more than what we parents knew. That night me and my wife couldn't sleep. Believe me, ये बाहर वाला बंदा जिसको हमारे बच्चे को देखा ही नहीं, जाना ही नहीं, and he was saying so much of things, this built in that curiosity through which my wife was very experimental in doing all these things. So she said, "मेरे को भी करना है. Let me also get it done." So she got it done, and it was another eye opener for her. She said she has got so much of things which she could realize it, but couldn't explore it because of whatever circumstances. We were all grown up or we were all brought up.
Right.
So she said, "I am so overwhelmed with what the results are for my son and for myself. I am thinking of getting into this and get trained myself and help the society." I said, "Very well and good. I am there to support. Please go ahead." So she underwent the training and all, and she came back and said, "Hey Venkat, I have already taken the training. I could understand what is it all about. My one suggestion for you is, please get your evaluation done for yourself." Because she could see me in that state, undergoing that midlife crisis, understanding कि इसको कुछ करना है, but that weak नहीं रहा है. So all these things, she said, you get it done, you will get something. But she was very good enough to tell me कि, she will ask the mentor who had mentored her to do the consultation with me.
Right.
It happened, and believe me, Vipul, it is said na कि every person meets one person in his life or career who gives a detour or a direction to that person कि बेटा तू इधर के लिए नहीं है, इधर के लिए है. And that is what precisely happened 10 years ago. Understanding a kid is a different perspective, but understanding a person who has got exposed to the environment is
Right.
completely a different ballgame.
Right.
Here, I could realize not only my strengths, I could realize where my limitations were. I could realize for whatever I was doing, there is a reason behind it. So I could connect the dots all my past. क्या गलती किधर किया था और क्यों किया था. And the
Right.
way he explained me my strengths, he said, "Boss, this is your course and you'll be happy." So I realized that, boss, whatever he's been saying, I could just connect.
Correct.
After a period of time, he said, "Boss, since you're working, since you're in a corporate way, why don't you take this as plan B and take it
Correct.
ahead?" I'm confident because with what you have within you, with the strengths what you are born with, you are meant for humanities. Okay, the other option what he said was, I was meant for medical. Had I been consulted during my school time or during my 10th, I would have definitely taken medical because there was nobody to guide.
Correct.
But now he said medicine to nahi le sakte, but you can still get into the field of humanity. And nothing better than this. So I said I was anyway happy in the field of guiding, understanding, and I had a interest towards getting into the curiosity levels of what fingerprints is all about. And I got a little conviction, not 100% conviction, little conviction कि ये मेरे बारे में जान सकते हैं, तो I can understand people and help.
True.
But one statement which what he made, just दिमाग की बत्ती जल गई. It was like having mentors at that time. He was so confident in saying, Venkat, once your conviction gets cleared, it's hardly a matter of time. It is not. It is almost about 18 months to 2 years. In this period of time, once your conviction is clear, you will step into it full time. And believe me, that is what
That's
happened.
exactly what happened.
Yes.
Okay, super. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty a little bit, because I think that is what most of the people who are watching this will want to know. So, what are the different areas, Venkat, that you evaluate? While we were having a chat the other day, you mentioned 5 areas, and left brain, right brain, till I started getting lazy about a lot of those things. So, why don't you explain what are the various areas that you evaluate, and how do you then arrive at the your evaluation of, let's say, a person?
So to begin with, the first thing, the couple of things what comes about from this evaluation is, one, you understand your personality, your behavior, your nature, your strengths and limitations, what attracts you, what distracts you, where
Okay.
is your passion, and where and what the purpose of your life is. Everyone has come on this earth for a purpose. Some has come to
Right.
guide, some has come to direct, some has come to lead, some has come to help, some has come to serve the people. But there is something for which the person has come on this earth for. So when we do the evaluation, that person automatically gets connected to what the purpose is ultimately. Or once he gets into the journey, that person automatically identifies.
Hmm.
But to give a brief about what it is, can I share the screen and tell you what,
Yeah, yeah,
I would
sure.
like
Please
to
do.
help you out with understanding the 10 fingers and the 10 skill sets, what the 10 fingers represent.
Right.
So this will make the session more interesting and people will be able to connect the
Understand.
dots.
Yeah.
So if you permit me to share the screen, I will be happy to
Please
do
go
that.
ahead. Please go
So let me talk about the type of skill sets. So
ahead.
when we talk about skill sets, so the 10 fingers indicates 10 skill sets which every human being is gifted with.
Okay.
So I will share what each fingers represent as far as the skill set goes. I will not talk about the type of fingerprints because it's a very vast area. So the type of skill sets, once you understand, because this is what every human being has. Okay, so to begin with, R1, I'm talking about your right thumb.
Okay.
Okay, right thumb, it talks all about I, me, myself.
Okay.
When I say all I, me, myself, it is all about self. So
Okay.
self center, your self introspection, rational thinking, ego, attitude. You can say that because people high on self is they treat themselves on a very higher level.
Right.
And if I have to talk about subjects from this particular zone, philosophy comes from here. Okay, so R1 is all about I, me, myself. Anything and everything related to self. So it talks to the level of your integrity level. It talks to the level of anything related to self. Okay, now the next one, L1, which is your left thumb, it talks about we. R1 was I, L1 is we. When I talk about we represents empathy. We represent knowing people. It's all about people skill. From here, you can understand a part of vision. We say, nah, this person is very visionary. So
Right.
this zone represents a part of your visionary approach.
Okay.
This zone talks about your social connect.
Right.
This zone talks about your leadership skills. So the basic understanding of L1, which is V, if this is higher than I, if this is higher than I, this person is meant to serve. If I is higher than V, this person is meant to become a professional. He or she can work either professionally, individually, or can work in corporate. But if a person is a V person, he is supposed to work with the team. He will be more than happy serving the people. So
Okay.
V being high means this person will always have that feel good factor to do good for others.
Right.
The priority of doing things for people will be higher than self.
Okay.
So we would have heard of emotional quotient, EQ, EQ, all the
Hmm.
while we have been listening. EQ is nothing but a combination of I and we. Okay. So not that the I person will never think good about others, he will think, but for we person, it is absolutely natural. Okay. Then let's come to R2, the right index. It talks about your. Acha, by the way, from L1, if you ask about subject, sociology is related from here.
Okay.
R1 is philosophy, L1 is sociology.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So now R2 is all about logical skills. When I say logical skills, conceptual understanding of anything and everything comes from this place. The power of reasoning comes from this place. Power of understanding comes from this place. You would have encountered people asking a lot of questions
Yeah.
till the time they are not clear. That means they need to know things conceptually to move forward.
Okay.
The best part, the most important virtue of this particular zone is patience comes from this place. So when I talk about conceptual understanding, I can correlate these subjects over here: physics, geometry, stats, and grammar. These four subjects are apart from this zone. So you would have heard people saying, "Is bande ka presence of mind बहुत बढ़िया है."
Hmm. Yeah.
That presence of mind comes from this zone. So any evaluation or any analytical ability comes from this zone. So this zone is more about what now. because it talks about the present. Okay. Now we go to L2 imagination, which is what next. This is what now, and this is what next. So when I'm talking about imagination, this is seeing the unseen, the 3D. Okay, when I'm saying 3D, it talks about what the person can foresee. This is also a part of the visionary approach what every people have. Certain people have good visionary approach. That vision is a combination of L1 and L2. So people who are high on imagination, they are good solution givers. You would have seen people, array to out of the box thinking karta hai. This zone is working. So this zone is meant for innovation, not creativity, innovation. Something new, this zone is meant for it. So a very simple example, if your imagination is higher than logic, this guy is more of a long-term gain personality. And if the logic is higher than imagination, this guy is a short-term gain personality. From this zone, you can really understand whether that person has got the ability to take risks knowingly or unknowingly. This zone is so crucial. This zone, if both the zones are strong, then only I recommend engineering for students, because this zone plays a very vital role. Say it for finance, say it for medicine, and say it for engineering. These two zones play a very important role. Just to put it in a layman's language or a technical language, imagination is the zone which helps you decode, and logic is the zone which helps you code. Okay. The next R3, which is your right middle finger, it talks about fine motor skill. It talks about dexterity. It talks about precision movement. It talks about your reflexes. It talks about your, flexibility, minute muscle movement, the way you present. People with high fine motor skill can express very nicely. Okay. Next, L3 is all about gross motor skill. When I talk about gross motor skill, I'm talking about physical endurance. When I'm talking about physical endurance, I'm talking about physical display of ability. 100 बात की एक बात, अगर ये zone strong है, a person is very proactive. Otherwise, he is always on a reactive mode.
Right.
Okay. The next zone is R4, which is your ring finger right. It talks about your linguistic skills, how you pronounce, how the accent, all this thing comes from here. How you hear, even that comes from here. So, if a person is high on this, that person has to get into talking. It helps. Okay, now L4, your left ring finger, it's the zone of emotion. Love for music comes from here. Sympathy comes from here. Okay, now this is all about understanding pitch control, about how the person speaks, the behavior pattern of the other person. All this thing comes from here. If I have to associate a subject from here, psychology comes from here. Empathy से sociology आती है, emotion से psychology आती है, sympathy से psychology आती है. So if these two zones are strong, that person has to get into writing. And what we say is, more the strength you need to channelize on a daily basis, otherwise you become restless.
Right.
Okay, then R5, your little right finger, it's called the naturalist zone. How you are connected to nature. This talks about your ability to get into details, minutest details, patience to get into minutest details. So when I talk about this talks about your 5 senses. It's all related to 5 senses. So subjects associated, zoology, botany, microbiology, internal audit, quality check, quality control, all these things are
I was about to ask you if CA will come under this.
Yes,
Talking about this minute
yes.
evaluation.
Even lawyers has to have a strong zone of this. Otherwise, they will not be able to read into details. The patience to read comes from this zone. Okay. And last but not the least, L5, the visual zone. So imagination was seeing the scene, 3D. This is imagination was seeing the unseen.
Correct.
This is seeing the scene, 2D. So this zone talks all about size, shape, colors. If I have to correlate subjects, history, geography, civics comes from here. So basis this combination is what we help people to understand their strengths and limitations. For that, we need to understand the fingerprints and the calculation to understand which is strong and which is slow. That's an in-depth study, so we should not go into that.
Yeah,
In fact,
let's not get in just for basic understanding of things.
okay. Now
Right.
let me rename these zones. The first zone is called as the action zone. Second zone is called as the thinking zone, or we call it as the decision-making zone.
Right.
The third zone is called as the kinesthetic zone, or to put it in a very simple language, the mobility zone. Fourth is the auditory zone, and fifth is the visual zone. So if you go back to your school days, the 10th biology, we are talking about frontal, prefrontal, and parietal, temporal, and occipital. So these are the 5 lobes what we are talking about. So the right side, all
It
of
matches
them,
with the lobes of the hair.
yes. And the right side of the finger, the R1, R2, R3, R4, R5 represents your left brain. And L1, L2, L3, L4, 5, it represents your right brain. So this is how the entire calculation or the combination is derived upon. But this is the base.
So even in advertising and even in market research or many of the marketing professions, people usually say right brain, left brain. So now you kind of explained it, very well because now you know how and where people who are in finance come in, a certain kind of category. Doctors come in a certain kind of category.
So let me share a little bit of information. So all this while the 9.5 years, whatever I had done this evaluation for many of the CAs also, chartered accountants. Okay. Believe me, I could tell that person कौन से attempt में pass किया है.
Wow. Okay.
Near, more or less. Because see, if you have to become a CA, not that you cannot become, you can become, but if you have those strong skill sets, you can crack it easily. Of course, various factors are there attributing to it, but the stronger skill sets are required for those kind of profession. As I said, every profession is a combination of skill sets. Correct. So you can identify from this combination of skill sets where your talent lies and where you should venture. So the first base is to understand whether you are an I person or a V person. Okay. वहां से तुम्हारी गेम चालू हो जाती है. If you're a V person, you are meant to work with team. If you're an I person, you're meant to work with you can be self-employed or you can work in corporate. Okay. Then second, whether you are a desk personality or a moving personality. That also matters. So if a person is high on energy, this person will never prefer to be on a desk job.
Right.
He'll never be able to think. He'll never be able to sit for a long time. But if he's a desk person, then he can do.
Right.
So there are a lot of details which attributes for a person's growth. That needs to be identified.
Okay, so Venkat, what we'll do is we'll take a couple of audience questions, which seem very interesting also, so that we can. So this question comes from Samir. What's the process like? Do you need any special tools to read fingerprints?
Okay. So the process to get this evaluation done is first to capture the fingerprints. So it can be either captured through biometric scanning or it can be sent through pics, By applying talcum powder over here on all your fingertips, the grooves are very clearly visible. Just take close view pic and send it across. So basis that, every fingerprint can be identified, analyzed. First is the identification of fingerprint. So this is the way things are identified.
So you don't need any special tools. I mean, anybody can easily, send you the information,
Absolutely.
and then you can
Yes.
evaluate it.
So absolutely. So I have got clients all across the world. Okay. So thanks to COVID, which helped us to devise this particular method of getting the fingerprints,
Okay.
and it becomes easy.
All right. So one question comes from Rajesh Mishra. Okay, the question is: are there any new developments or research in fingerprint analysis that excite you?
If we go back to the Vedas,
Right.
from where this fingerprints, the history of fingerprint comes in.
Right.
At that point of time, there are 133 fingerprints identified. I'm talking about 133 fingerprints. But our experts or the research team, they have been able to identify only 70 of them, 70 or 75 of them. Okay. So that research is on. And again, by using the old, getting into the scriptures, the books and all. So every time when you come across with some observation, some new identification, the entire evaluation goes to a different level. Like 4 years back, we had never talked about the health aspect. But our research shows that people with this type of fingerprint are prone to certain things. That is based on the research, what has been done, and with a set of examples, like if I know ki you are this, so I would be asking you certain questions. These are the things which got revealed, and this is how it has been identified.
Super. I have one follow-up question for you, and then I will also take one from the on the group. So basically, what are the areas for which people typically come to you for consulting? I mean, is it career, or is it health, or is it related to the relationships that they have? Is it about money? I mean, what do people come to you for? Very few people, would come and say, okay, मेरे को मेरी personality बताओ. I don't think too many people would be interested in finding that out. So I'm sure the questions are typically about career and so on.
Absolutely. So people come first mainly come for career guidance. Okay. So if somebody is from the 8th standard to 12th undergraduate, those parents come for career guidance as to what field suits for their kids. They understand that. This is one. 99% of the cases, it so happens that when a kid's evaluation is done, either one parent or both the parents, they also get their evaluation done. Reason is they also feel that there's a lot in store for them to understand. Second, kids between 2 years to 12 years, the parents come for parental guidance. Okay, now what parental guidance? Like I shared my experience of, हमारे बच्चे को तो हमने abacus, skating, drawing में डाल दिया था. Okay, so I can very pinpointedly help the parent identifying which sport or which activity the kid could excel. Without any trial and error basis. So your time, energy, efforts, everything is put in the right direction. Plus how to communicate with the kid and how to work best with your kids. So this is as far as the parental guidance. So third set of category of people who come to me is the fresh graduates. To know kya karna hai. Because in today's arena, every graduate wants to do MBA. Lekin which MBA? So I can help the fresh graduates to understand which MBA or which post graduation you can do and what kind of business or your journey can be moved ahead. And fourth, corporate working individuals undergoing midlife crisis, they also come to me. And the list can go on. I've got a separate list of housewives who wants to do something, but they don't know what to do. So these are the kind of people who come across.
So there's an interesting question from Asad Sheikh. So I just take that here. So he said, if someone gets a fingerprint analysis done, okay, and then works on some of the identified weaknesses, would a subsequent analysis show the same results or different results?
The fingerprint never changes from birth till end. So if you get your evaluation done now or after 2 years, the result will remain the same because it's not going to change. So Talking about limitation, weakness, and all, I always suggest people to work on their strengths. They have got more strengths than weaknesses. So it is always better to work on their strengths than improvising on their weaknesses.
So, I mean, it's normally understandable. I mean, most people would think that you would evaluate something, and it's like evaluating your blood glucose. Somebody tells you blood glucose high hai, exercise karo. 1 month later, when you go and see, you have obviously dropped a bit, right? I mean, so I think the question comes out of that. But what you're saying is this is basically a guideline, and it tells you your strengths and weaknesses. You work on your strengths, and you will do far greater than if you let's say spend the same amount of time working on your weaknesses and trying to get them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I mean, this question was asked also by somebody on the group. So this is a question which I have. Can you tell us a few interesting case studies where you help people, and they've come back to you maybe a year later and said, "Sir, आपने तो मेरी life बदल." So have you had these kind of cases?
So there
And
are
I'm saying
many.
life badalni for the better, because
So there are many of them, but the ones which I would love to share is very close to my heart. This was one of the few consultations which we had done in the beginning. We started
right.
our journey. Okay, this was for a 10th standard kid, Javna by pass out, 97% typical Gujarati family. Okay, घर पे डॉक्टर नहीं था कोई, so they all felt कि the kid has to become a doctor, and that is where I stepped in. And the one thing what I told in front of everyone was, this guy can become a doctor. He's got all those potential, but there are two things which needs to be kept in mind. Number one, this guy cannot stand the sight of blood. Okay, उधर ही उनका 50% आंसर मिल गया कि sight of blood, if that person cannot stand on, there's no point pursuing that career. Second, becoming a doctor is about 11 to 13 years journey. Okay, and this guy didn't have that patience to stay long. So alternatively, I suggested him to take economics and mathematics as a combination from NM. Okay, every year this guy topped economics. Okay, I had suggested CLAT as a option after 12 for this guy, or I said after doing CLAT he can also look at appearing for the civil services.
Right.
Alternatively, I said after doing eco maths he can get into the financial part in a financial segment and start his journey.
Okay.
He didn't do anything, but he simply stuck on to eco maths, topped economics every year from NM, and he finally got picked up from Citibank during the campus placement. And he's doing very well now. This is for a student. Okay. Second success story. 6 years back, I had done it for a 52-year-old lady.
Okay.
Okay. And I found her creative zone is very high. It is just waiting to get unleashed, because of which she is not able to do a lot of things. Because a lot of things running in her mind. So I suggested her to start off with abstract painting.
Okay.
She diligently started. Today it is more than 6 years. She would have painted more than 1,000 paintings. Abstract painting was just the beginning. She has gone into different levels of painting. So her daughter, who is a friend of mine, she says, Venkat, you have leashed the demon out of her. Now that lady, when I met her last, she said, Sir, next year mera retirement hai. For the next 10 years, I am clear what I need to do. The third case was for a corporate working individual undergoing midlife crisis. I helped him out, giving an alternative plan. Abhi, that guy was working for corporate, a VP level guy. Okay. And you can understand how the corporate situation is nowadays.
Yeah.
It's very sensitive. There's no kind of security in terms of what your job role is. So anything can happen anytime. So as a plan B, and that pressure was already taking a toll on his health, I helped him out working on a plan B. Believe me, one of the suggestions given to him was I had asked him to get into what I am doing. Okay, he got into it and he's doing extremely well. So these are the three case studies or three cases,
Fabulous.
which can, this is just a few of them. But yes, what I tell people is age is just a number. You can identify your talent at any given point of time.
Having said that, is there an ideal age that you would, I mean, if I was to come to you and say, what is the ideal age? Should I, recommend you to my 16-year-old son, or do I, who's well into my 50s, I mean, the latter half of my career? I mean, what is the ideal age to get your fingerprint evaluation done? And I'm saying from a perspective of, improving your thing. I mean, what would be an ideal age? Or is it an infant? I mean, just for my understanding.
So what we suggest is we generally suggest anybody from 2 years can get their evaluation done.
Right.
Okay. But what I personally feel is any kid from 3.5, 4 years is the right age to get it done. Now there is a reason behind it.
Okay.
So any activity or any classes, if we at all need to put the kid in, the minimum age criteria is 3.5, 4.
Right.
So 3.5, 4 years is the right age to get in. After that, any age is a good age to get this evaluation done. But the only thing what we tell for kids is catch them young. Because the period between 2 to 10 or 2 to 12 is the formative period of your brain. So certain kids don't take inputs after 10, certain kids don't take inputs after 12. So it's better to catch them as young as possible. If you have missed this age, any age is a good age. You only need to know yourself. Because rest everything can be Googled.
Okay. So, okay. And I mean, also, this typically happens. We are so used to SWOT analysis, and we do a SWOT of almost everything that we know, right? So, we identify our strengths and we know these are the areas of improvement. I know you don't like to call them weaknesses, areas of improvement. So, once having done that, how does, say, let's say somebody is at a CXO level position, right? And figures out, good in certain areas, not so good in other areas. So, what would you recommend? Would you recommend they work on getting their, themselves better on areas of improvement, or they hire people? I mean, what do you typically recommend to people to come to you?
So if somebody is strong in, say for example, a person X is very high on his creative sense,
Right.
okay, but not so good in managing his finance.
Right.
Let's take this case, very interesting, very simple case to understand.
Right.
I will say management of finance outsource kar de bhai. That is better off for you. Take help from a qualified guy and work on your creatives. That will help you earn more money rather than saving money from this side. So the areas where you're not strong enough, it's good to outsource. It's good to take help. What I suggest is don't use your productive hours doing unproductive things.
Okay, so let's come to two other areas that we know you about. So one is your other avatar as a networker. I mean, in fact, it's the same avatar, just that you're a very good networker. So tell me about your business networking journey, Venkat.
So I am in this business networking fraternity for the last 6 years. Okay. And let me tell you, this networking journey has made a 360-degree shift of what Venkat is all about.
Can
There's a
you
huge
elaborate?
difference.
Can you elaborate?
Okay. So when you were in your corporate life, the chair held the power.
Yeah.
Okay. People used to approach you to get what they want from me or get the work done or whatever. So you were limited and confined to a limited area of your network because it was always office, home, home, office. There was nothing beyond that. Any networking happening was purely related to your office work.
Correct.
Because In today's world, there is no time for the corporate guys to mingle around. There's absolutely no time. But when I joined the business networking community, believe me, that's the time I could understand what networking is all about, what empathy is all about. You could learn empathy when you joined this business network, and it has opened up a lot of avenues. And I love to meet people. So, that is helping me to reach out to so many people. So my advice and my suggestion to, the fresh entrepreneurs and all, I say invest 1 year, 2 years in this networking community. They will learn a lot from here because this networking is never taught in any of your universities.
Right. And you've been on the leadership team. You've been leadership role in Evolve. It's a chapter I highly admire and respect. So how did that role as a leadership team member, and also now as part of the regional leadership team of BNI Mumbai, how has that kind of helped you in your business? Has it? I mean, of course, it no doubt opens up a completely new set of people whom you can evaluate. I mean, that's one part of it. But how has it helped you in your journey as an entrepreneur?
So first, let's take the case when I got an opportunity to get into the leadership team.
Right.
And I had never expected ki, with Evolve being such a big chapter, one will get an opportunity to get into that league. So I got it. I took it with grace and I did well, and I was very happy about whatever I had accomplished as per the chapter. That opened up a lot of other things. You became very visible. So that visibility when you're on that head table gives you a different kind of accomplishment. And you don't know where your visibility will work. If you're on that table, people would always have a additional advantage of once you are on that table. So that level of respect what you earn, that remains forever. And that has a lot of advantage. And secondly, once you are in the regional team, that gives you a different dimension altogether. And that's where I have met people like you.
One bright spot in a man's morning.
Yes. So it's all about meeting. See, networking is such a thing, you don't know who will open up which door for whom. So one has to be in that right kind of, mindset to accept that networking platform and be with that.
So the other, aspect about you is that you do half marathons.
Yeah, half marathon.
So can you tell us a bit about that journey? I mean, how many half marathons have you, in a competitive way, done so far? And how did that journey be?
So if you're talking about the competitive way, it is always competing with self. So I don't run for the podium and all. I run for myself. So my running journey began in the year 2013, 12, 13. Okay. And that's when I started. So as of date, I have done 30 half marathons and a various number of 10 kilometers and 15 kilometers run. Okay. Now every marathon, what I did was only to compete with myself, just to have that belief in me that I can still achieve it. My evaluation, or when my mentor had spoken something about me, one thing which struck at that point of time was he had told me something ki whatever is difficult for others will be easy for you, you should try. And marathon is something which I don't think everyone tries to attempt it. So this is one.
The very thought can be scary to a lot of people.
So this is that takeaway from that particular discussion what we had. And yes, I am still continuing. I am still preparing to accomplish of many more marathons to come.
I mean, we are closing into the hour, right? I had asked you for 1 hour of your time, and we are 58 minutes there. So the last 2 minutes, Venkat, looking into the future. I know you always say that, fingerprint analysis is not looking into the future, looking into the past. But here I would request you to look into the future for yourself and tell me, how do you see yourself? I mean, do you have a vision for yourself? What next at the very minimum that we can expect from you?
So one thing is very clear. I am meant to help and guide people. Okay. So I am looking at reaching out to maximum people, as much as I can, to make a difference and be the change for them. So if you ask me 5 years down the line, where are you looking at? I'm looking at touching about 10,000 or 15,000 people, and probably helping them to unleash. And that is how you build the nation. Society can be built, anything can be built over it. So,
No, yes, that's right. Yeah.
so the asset, mankind is the asset. So if you help them, navigate them, results will be a byproduct.
Help them, navigate them, and the result will be a byproduct. Well, beautiful words, Venkat, to end this conversation. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being so open about all the questions that we had for you. I hope the people who've been listening in found something valuable in this. Uh, and I wish you all the very best for the coming period ahead. And I'm going to welcome you back once you finish 10,000 once again, so that we can talk more about this journey from 3,000 odd to 10,000 that you managed to finish. So wishing you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vipul. It was very nice to share the platform with you. Thank you so much. And in gratitude. Thank you.